Dude, I'm useless as two sticks.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is a new episode of Basic AF, BAF, back at it again. Tom A, Jeff B, doing his little dance there. You can't see it. Look at you.
But I can.
But it is Friday night. It's the Friday night shakedown.
Right. We're dancing. We're dancing, Tom. We're doing all the things we should be doing on a Friday night.
I don't know if it was
drinking,
dancing, but it was something.
Smoking. I'd say screwing, but we're not.
I see the show's kicking off just like the pre-show nonsense did.
Right, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. If you
Let's
guys
just say that we have 11 minutes of outtakes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm already interrupting you. We're 30 seconds in. All right, I'm shutting my mouth.
No, we're really 13 minutes in, but only a minute of the show. So, welcome back, everybody. Thanks again for being here. We do appreciate it very much. And if you're new and have stumbled upon this little thing, we do appreciate you checking us out and giving us a shot. We hope to earn a spot on your playlist. If you've got any feedback at any point, feel free to email us. It's feedback@basicafshow.com. The website's the same thing, where you can peruse the entire catalog, as Jeff likes to say.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say it?
Sure. Peruse the entire catalog. We have lots of good shows you can go back to. Don't just start here.
Ooh, I like that. That's good.
With this episode.
Nice. Which is, I think, 17 we're up to.
We're 17 years old. I mean, 17 shows.
I wish. We're like way past that. Yeah, as I got reminded at work the other day, so that was nice.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. Right. Tom, you're so old. Yeah, thanks.
What 19-year-old
that was a coworker
said that to you? Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, well.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't a lie, but still.
Yeah, right. But it still hurts.
Not as much as it used to. I'm kind of getting over it. So basicafshow.com is the website with all the episodes. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the other players as well. If you would like to get some additional commentary, tips, tricks, app recommendations, I send out a little newsletter every now and then. You can get to that at tomfanderson.com. I'd like to have you sign up there. That'd be great.
Yes, it would.
All right. So this show, we've got a couple of things we're going to roll through, a couple of news updates, some little bit of topicality up front, and we'll roll through that. And then we're going to talk about the iPad a little bit.
Yeah, sounds like fun. iPad and maybe a little beta talk.
Yeah, some beta updates as those are winding down.
Yes, absolutely true. So, Tom, the big thing, speaking of old, I'm not talking about myself, of course. USENET is back. Remember USENET, Tom?
I do.
I do too. Were you?
That's why I don't get mad when people say I'm old, because I am. It's like I remember these things.
Actually, technically, I don't think that USENET was ever gone. USENET being the original, one of the original social networks, if you want to call it that, all text-based, where you signed up with your, what was it, 19-baud modem, the squawk, you get on and somebody picks up the phone and screws you up so you can't talk on it anymore. But
I need the phone.
Yeah. Don't pick it up. What do you mean you picked it up?
What days?
Yeah, those were the wonderful days. And some people listening to this are going to go, what are you talking about?
Don't click off of us just yet. We'll dial it in.
No.
Right. Hang around.
And we're going to talk about the time I had the hemorrhoids.
Jesus.
I know, you're welcome, Tom.
Wow. Great. Now they're tuning out for sure.
Anyway, USENET was a text-based, still is a text-based, essentially social network. It is actually the place that I learned to program in Lisp. So let's talk about that. That was about 5,000 years ago when I was taking a programming class. But it's it's basically a message board where you can go get information, pull down information from there. There were apparently a bunch of clients as the internet or the computers got more graphical. But my recollection of that was using the terminal application, popping on once I was connected to the internet via my dial-up modem, putting in some Usenet information terminal and then being able to run commands to see the information that was sitting there. So all the insidious stuff that you see on the major social networks now, Twitter, which is no longer called that, but I'm not going to call it what that guy calls it. Facebook, any of those other places, all of that kind of started on Usenet, and you can get on it now. There are a couple different clients apparently for every OS, and you've got the ability to start looking at things like rec.arts.sf.written and rec.arts.sf.fandom.
How exciting is that?
You know, Tom, I miss those days.
Well,
a little nostalgic.
So I got introduced to those. Well, I think I stumbled onto those through so kind of my introduction to everything was the online services, right? So America Online, CompuServe, Prodigy, they all had those. And these were also called news groups.
News groups is correct.
Yeah. And they were kind of segmented out by topics. So you would have tech topics, you could have writing topics, history, general news, whatever the case was. And you would jump on there. And they were, like Jeff said, they were definitely precursors to some of the social things we have now.
I think probably most like Reddit is.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing was, though, then there wasn't like, you didn't get the algorithm pushes to amplify certain things because
that's a shame.
It really is.
So sorry to hear that.
Yeah, those things suck. And I think they were just messages. Like you would go and you would see the message, and then you would kind of see them as they were. So if there were a thread, you would see it in sequential order, and there were some etiquettes that you had to follow. You had to make sure you put your new message at the bottom of the other message so people could see what was leading you to say what you said, or or even at the top. But don't dare put it in the middle somewhere, because
people would still yell at you.
They would, yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting that it's kind of making its way back.
Yeah, it is interesting. Artisanal computing.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see. I have not hopped on yet. I might find myself a Usenet client just for giggles to go out and have a look. But I do wonder if it's still not algorithmically pushing garbage towards you.
Right.
So maybe it's a little like making beer in your bathtub. It's maybe not great, but it's your beer. You can enjoy it.
Yeah, just like that. So there's your history lesson for today, kids.
You're welcome. So two old farts doing a show. That's us. Yeah, we're changing the name next episode.
Yeah.
It'll be two old farts.
And speaking of old things that are history, Apple has added the 2017 MacBook Pro with Touch Bar to the vintage list.
Man, that's kind of early.
Does seem quick.
Yeah, sunsetted that one a little quick. One of the things about that is that there's still people I know that are using them. Colin, who I've said by name, so I won't say who he is, but Colin, who I know happens to be a child of mine. I don't usually give names out. He had one of those and loved it. To be fair, though, he said he almost never used the touch bar. So probably right that it's gone. But it seems, what are we talking about? That came out in 2017. We're now in 2023, 5 years. 6 years. Because I can't do math. Typically feels like I'd have to go back and look if I really wanted to and see whether or not it's more like 8 years is usually the cutoff point for that. But I bet you 10 to 1. And one of the reasons that they do shuttle those things off to vintage is they no longer want to make parts for them. So that touch bar is gone. I don't think we'll see it come back.
Still can't believe they have that 13-inch MacBook Pro with touch bar still for sale. That M2 still for
Is
sale.
it a touch bar one? I didn't realize that. Maybe I'm wrong then. Maybe.
Well, I think you're probably still right, but I don't. It's a head scratcher why they still have that.
Yeah,
because we were buying those up until this past January, I think it was, or spring. No,
really?
This past spring, yeah.
And then you hopped on the Airs.
Yeah, we hopped on the Airs at that point. And I didn't want to keep buying them, but I think part of the reason they do it is it has a Pro name on it for whatever reason. But the 14s and 16s are a little out of reach budget-wise for some places, like for us, right? We couldn't go to the 14 and 16 because they're just definitely not the 16. But the 14 is even, would stretch things very, very thin.
Yeah.
And so I wonder about that, but yeah, it's still around. And I wonder too, how do I want to put this? How excited Apple might be to just rid themselves of all of the Intel baggage.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying, I think. Is that the last Intel device? I think it is.
No, they've got 18s, 19s. I mean, they're all 13-inch, 15-inch models.
Oh, I'm sorry. As far as what they're selling.
I want to say it is. Since they did the Pro, the Mac Mini, when they put the M2 Pro in that got rid of that high-end Intel-based Mac Mini that they had. Yeah. And iMac's been M1 for 12 years now.
Long time.
But yeah, I think it is. I think that might be.
Okay. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe that's part of the deal. But yeah.
So if you have one of those, but, I mean, you're not in any immediate need to go out and buy something else.
Totally not.
But Sonoma will be the last major Mac OS update that you get. But you'll still get security updates probably for another 1 or 2 years. So
a couple of years.
You're okay for now.
You can ride that thing for a little longer.
Yep, you certainly can.
Absolutely true. All right. Cool.
So,
goodbye, 2017 MacBook Pro.
Peace out.
Switchboard.
Yeah.
Peace.
We had a little bit of an announcement this week, Jeff.
What is the announcement, Tom?
Surprising no one, there's a new iPhone coming out in September.
What?
Yep. So the event?
What?
Wonderlust on September 12th, 1 o'clock Eastern time. New phones, watches, probably some watch bands.
Yeah. Speaking of watches, one interesting idea that came up about those watches is that the next watch is going to be 3D printed, which is interesting.
It is.
To say the least. I don't know what that says. Maybe that saves a lot of wasted metal, although Apple's pretty good at not wasting that kind of stuff. But that's kind of interesting. I like the idea that that's 3D printed. I am definitely looking forward to the phone. I'm not going to be updating my watch, although there's some rumor perhaps that we might have a darker model Ultra. So something in the space gray realm or something around there. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the one I have. The titanium that I have is pretty still. But
yeah.
Yep. So we might see something like that. But yeah, as you're right, it comes as no surprise. This is, Christmas in September, as it always is. Or Hanukkah, depending on.
Whatever you want it to be. Doesn't matter.
Kwanzaa. We do all of those things. But yeah, it's not a surprise. And I'm looking forward to it. I plan to get the next phone.
Anything in particular you're looking or hoping for on the phone since you're going to be picking one up?
No. I have this tendency to avoid all the speculation about what might be, mostly because that 2 days after the Wonderlust announcement, maybe one day we're going to get, what we wish we had, and then in the latest iPhone
17,
right, and then the next one's going to be this. It's like, come on, I don't pay attention. I'm always looking forward to new camera capabilities. That is the camera that is with me most often. I take the majority of my photographs now with the camera, so I definitely look forward to some of those options. Other than that, I couldn't think of anything more that I want, which is kind of ridiculous. But I don't know. Is there anything that? First of all, are you a year after year upgrader or every 2 year upgrader?
I typically do every 2.
Yeah. So this is my 2 year cycle. That's the other piece of it. So I'm on that myself. Is there anything you're hoping it has?
Not really.
You have a 14 currently.
I've got a 14 Pro, yeah. Okay. And so the always on display, I got that with that. Got the dynamic island thing on the front, which is useful.
Yeah.
I can't say I use it a whole lot because I typically don't use my phone a whole lot, like for extended periods where I need to be monitoring what's up there and that thing. But it is handy, and I think it's a playful feature to add.
And there's something to be said for that, by the way. Just something that's fun.
It doesn't have to be amazing, technological breakthrough. It could be whimsical and playful and fun. But no, otherwise, I mean, I'm really happy with the one I have. The battery life has been pretty good for me. I know there were some articles maybe a week or two ago where people were there was a write up about the battery health for some of the 14 seems lower than you might think it would be for it being only a year old or something. But I haven't had that issue. I checked mine. Mine's still in good shape. So, but yeah, I've been happy with it. There's something that I haven't still been able to put my finger on with the photos that they feel over processed. I even tried some with the app that you suggested.
Halide.
Yep. And that honestly, I didn't see too much of a difference.
Really? Interesting.
And so now I will throw a little bit of a caveat to that is I have started shooting more with the Sony. And so I don't know if, I'm seeing pictures from it. And it's like, oh, wow, those are keep zooming, and they're very clear. So that could be coloring my perspective a little bit.
I got to say the same thing, though. It's mostly in the Photos app. And what's really weird about it is when I take those photos and do any editing directly in the Photos app, I'm noticing that it looks one way when I finish editing it, and when I click done and it saves it, it looks a different way. And I don't know whether that's me being stupid. Look at that look on your face.
No, I was saying that's
what
not
kind
good.
Of dork are you? Because I'm a dork.
It's like you edit it to look a certain way, and then you click done, and it doesn't look that way.
Yeah, and
it's not great.
I haven't thought about doing a screen recording when I do that. And it's typically photos I have taken using the Photos app, gone in and processed and brought back. Anything that I'm doing with Halide now, which that has become the default with that nice little double finger tap that I do on the back of the phone that brings that app right up. That's pretty much all I'm using for photos, unless I have a quick one-off or, somebody's taking pictures of a group of people and I'm handing the phone to somebody. I don't want them to have to, what's this?
Right.
But I was noticing that, and it would be interesting to see. One of the things that's nice about Halide is it takes camera raw,
right?
So it takes those kinds of photos. Apple does, I think, have raw capabilities built into the into the camera as well. But yeah, I've seen similar things, and I don't know if it's because I've selected a particular photo style.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And where I noticed it was like when we went to the beach back in June. And I took the phone.
You're still tan, Tom.
Well, it's summer's fading, but I got to keep it going. But I took the Sony as well. And when I could see it in the Photos app, right? I'm looking through the photos and I'm like, oh, there's one the Sony took. Oh, there's one the phone took. Why the colors look so strange? And like this, what you just said, I thought I had the photographic style selected. So I actually went in to the settings there and play with that. And it wasn't. It was just on the standard setting. And so I don't know. I don't know if it's a software thing or if it's just one of those things that once you see it, it's hard to unsee it, and it's not necessarily bad. It's just different. So, they're not terrible pictures by any means, but they just look a little bit over processed,
a little punchy.
Yeah, and fuzzy and a little grainy in places. And on the phone, they look okay. It's usually when you put them up on the Mac and you start to actually look at them at a bigger size. You're like, these aren't so great.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, who knows what they do. There's a lot of super processing, like you said, going on.
Yeah, it's all computational these days. So,
yeah, and part of that is, you don't have lenses that actually can do the things that a lens like on your Sony can do, where you've got physical lenses that you're playing with that you adjust, and that adjusts, what it is and how it is that you're seeing things. So Who knows?
Right, larger sensors, all kinds of stuff. And it's,
absolutely.
And to be perfectly clear, I mean, the photo quality we get from phones these days is fantastic.
No,
right? I mean, it's iPhones, it's, some of the Android top tier phones do great photos as well. So and that's the one you have with you. And, I'm not going to carry the Sony around. Special occasion, I'll take it maybe. And even then, I don't use it a ton.
Mm-hmm. No, right. What's the best camera to have is the one that's with you. It's the old adage, it doesn't matter which one you have as long as you have one. Yeah, interesting. It'd be interesting to see. And we're going to get some, USB-C connections, I think, on this phone as well. Which probably means I need to buy more cables. Ode to joy. Actually, you know what? That's not true. And this is something I'll pop up. So when I got all my stuff stolen, one of the things that I picked up.
This is giving us content for months. It's great.
Dude. And I'm not bitter. It's been a year almost, but I'm not bitter. One of the things that I ended up getting is Apple sells a MagSafe charger that flips open. One is for the watch and one is for the phone. And if you're using those kinds of chargers, then you won't need to get a special cable for all the places that you go. That's one of the things I'm really pleased about. Thank you, thieves, wherever you are. I'm sure you're listening to this podcast, because that was actually a great purchase. Great for when I travel, fold it up, and it's not, again, another cable like the the Apple Watch charging cable and that. So if you're using any of the MagSafe charging capabilities, the cordless charging that's available.
Which I like a lot.
You don't feel, what's that? Yeah, I do like a lot too. You don't need to worry about that. It's a good.
All right. Anything else?
Leather cases, Tom.
I'm looking for watch bands.
Because I want to spend a few more $100.
Well, I feel like we're due for some new bands for the Ultra. It's been almost a year. We haven't gotten any that are specific to it.
No, you're right.
Of course, you can always use the other ones. They don't, they look okay, but they're not
Ultraman.
Well, neither am I.
Ultraman. There's a blast from the past.
So we'll see if we get some new watch bands. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I would like that. Little disappointed, and we'll talk about betas maybe a little bit later, but I am on all the betas on all the things. Now, the watch faces on the beta, I don't know if they're going to do some other ones, but I'm not feeling it. Charlie Brown's cute. There's another one that's okay. I'd like some watch faces.
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. I just don't know. It seems like even if there was, a third-party watch face and they had to approve each one, because I'm sure they don't want copyright stuff and that kind of thing. And they don't even have to be third-party. I think if they're not going to do third-party, then Apple takes on the responsibility, I think, of providing more and better watch faces.
Yeah, and they could do that a couple times a year, I think.
I think so.
It's an easy upgrade.
They could even sell some. People would buy it. I'm not saying I'd like it, but people would buy it.
People would buy it.
Yep.
Right.
And especially, 99 cents, $2.99, whatever. Yeah. Call me up, Tim.
Putting that idea in their head.
Yeah. Save a spot for me.
Right.
Yep.
Good for you.
You're welcome,
now,
everybody.
I have to spend money on other stuff.
Yep. So you have been running some betas.
I have. I've been running all the betas on all except the computer we're on right now.
Which is why I have you on FaceTime on the phone, because I can't see you in the recording session.
On FaceTime, right? Because I couldn't update this OS with the Beta OS's connection for the phone. And I got to say, pretty solid all the way around. I have been playing with a lot of that. One of the things I've been playing on the iPad, and this maybe is a good segue into the iPad as computer conversation, is the new Stage Manager feature, which I hate in the current iteration on the non-beta versions of Mac OS and iPad OS. It turned it off immediately. lot better job with the ability to rearrange windows, add multiple windows, have windows on top of windows. That's kind of a pain in the neck, I will admit. It's not quite as intuitive as it is in the macOS yet. But right now, I'm looking at three resized windows. One is notes for the show. One is the messages chat that we have. And then I also currently have you up in the upper right-hand corner, as far away as I can keep you from me, in FaceTime. I've got dual FaceTime for you. One in front of my face in Riverside where we're recording, and the other one off to the side there. But the way that this works now, really sharp. I actually might consider using this with some regularity. One of the things I also really like about the beta and the iPad, which this is silly, low rent kind of thing, but the fact that you can use live pictures on the lock screen, so that when you bring it up. By the way, this is also true of macOS itself. Kind of stunning. I kind of have the same feeling about that I did when we first talked about the photos feature that kind of flipped your photos every time you turned on the phone or the iPad, where it would switch between various pictures that you'd taken that you've selected.
A friend of mine at work just started using that
just now,
yesterday. Yeah, just updated her phone. So
wait, just updated their phone to
16. Yeah, 16. What we're on now. Yeah.
Wow.
And she listens, so be nice to her.
Okay. We love you. Thank you for listening. And we're so happy that you're on.
She pointed it out to me today that how much she liked that feature.
Yeah. It's still one of my favorite features.
Likewise.
In that OS. Yeah. And the addition now of live photos on lock screens is stunning. I have a waterfall picture that I took in my backyard, not directly in my backyard, but kind of,
swanky.
Half a mile. Woo, I'm fancy. Half a mile up in the woods behind my house. There's a pretty decent waterfall, and that is what, when I unlock my iPad, that's what I see, and that's all in motion. It's really beautiful, and it's kind of slower than the normal picture would be. It's like it speeds up and then kind of slows down until it stops. It's beautiful. It's a really nice feature.
I haven't seen that specifically, but have you looked at it's the new screensavers in desktop on Sonoma?
I have. I turned it off to do my own picture, Tom.
Okay, no, it's fine.
My own photos. No, I did, and that is another.
And it's similar to what you said.
Yeah, and the picture of Sonoma, of Sonoma, I should say.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it really is.
I think when I first installed the beta, I sent that to you, and I was like, "This looks incredible."
It really does. Even on the when you have to log into File Vault, it looks pretty slick there too, when you have to log into the computer for the first time. One of the things about this OS is, when I say this OS, Mac OS in general, is the way that Apple kind of grabs you with those kinds of things. It's not just an afterthought that they tack on. It's one of those things that's a real feature that makes it so your computer's yours. Look at you. You're looking at me like I'm some kind of dork.
No, I was going to say...
Go ahead, say it, Tom.
No, I was going to say, it's not an afterthought like the Finder. I was going to save that for the iPad as a computer thing, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so anyway, the beta is pretty nice. Yeah, okay, yeah. You got it. Yeah, so I've got betas on my watch. I've got betas on my MacBook Pro. I've not put it on this. As soon as we finish recording, I'll put it on this this Mac Mini, and have betas on the on my iPad. The only thing, I don't know, and this is going to kind of lead us into the iPad as computer question. The only thing that really, I don't know, you just give me a desktop. Or give me the option to turn on a desktop. I can appreciate that we wanted this to be a singular interface, that you tapped a button and it brought up an application. But I don't know. Let's have the option to make it a computer. Don't make me open up the Files app and then I have to see that stuff to get to it. I do have my desktop and iCloud Drive. I can see all those things. I don't know.
So shall we just roll into the main topic?
Oh, Tom, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Why not?
Go ahead.
So the main topic is when we this last week, Jason Snell, formerly of Macworld, now the head dude at Six Colors. They've got a couple of other people writing over there as well. Dan Morin's one of them, both Macworld guys, and few other people actually. I noticed the other day another person from Macworld was there. Hey, Jason, sure, bring me on.
Hey.
One of the things that he had in his last post was trying to use the iPad as a computer. I picked this up actually through Daring Fireball and then went over to Jason's bit. And what he's come down to is that he's the title of the article is Giving Up the iPad Only Travel Dream. And what he was talking about was the idea that he, would be able to leave his MacBook Pro or MacBook Air or whatever he's currently using. Actually, he's using a MacBook Air. Leave that at home and take the iPad with him to do everything that he needs to do. And he, like you, I believe, edits most of his podcast work on his iPad. You do that as well, correct?
Yep.
Our podcast work. You do the work. I just do the podcast.
Hey, it seems to be working. So we'll just keep at it. Yeah.
I get to listen to it before it goes out.
Which makes me feel better because I'm always paranoid it's going to have something wrong with it. And so at least when you do your verification list, we feel pretty good about it.
Preview. Parent approved. But he was talking about, I'll just read it. It says, I'm spending a few days this week visiting my mom, and it's the 4th or 5th time this summer I've needed to pack a bag as part of a busy travel schedule. For many years, I tried very hard to travel with only an iPad. I bring 2 devices, and I'm not leaving my iPad at home. Since the arrival of Apple Silicon, however, I've gone back to traveling with both an iPad and a MacBook Air. And I will say, I have never gotten to the point where I really work on the iPad either. I will say I have often traveled with it and used it as a second display. That I've done with regularity.
Is that the sidecar stuff?
Using the sidecar features. And I like that a lot. It works great. It gives me the opportunity to have, messaging that's going on when, I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing, wherever I'm doing it. And then to be able to have, typically a remote desktop session up, not a Apple remote desktop session, but a Windows remote desktop session up.
Which is a really good app, by the way.
It's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's
works
brilliant.
Great.
And so I run that on my Mac screen, and then I'm doing all the messaging stuff that I need to do using Sidecar. I'm still waiting for Highland Pro to come out, and it's still in beta on my iPad. So and I've had enough problems with using the beta to do real things that I'm not going to do that again, like whole paragraphs of rewritten text. No, thank you. Don't need to do that. But I have never gotten to the point where it is a standalone tool for me. Part of that, I think, is because of what we talked about here, which is there's not really Finder integration. It's better. It's not the same, depending on what app you're using. Like if you're using the Microsoft apps, even on the Mac OS, it's always trying to get you to go to OneDrive, not to your local hard drive, which is, I get it, but don't be annoying. In Mac OS in iPad OS, getting to like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, I feel like that integrates better, but I'm saving most of that stuff in those folders in my iCloud Drive. So it goes where it needs to go there. When I travel, it was just out with my mom. I'm now recording in Jeffrey Dahmer's basement, but last episode I was at my mom's house in Jeffrey Dahmer's cabin. I don't know what you want to call it. No, Ted Kaczynski's cabin.
Man, dark.
Yeah, you know me. So Ted Kaczynski's cabin at mom's and Jeffrey Dahmer's basement at my house. But what I end up using the iPad for is watching movies. checking a couple of messages and doing stuff like that. But honestly, I have not made a transition to using an iPad for everything. I'm proud of you, Tom, because you are at least using it to edit podcast episodes. Are you doing other things, though, that make it more could you live? I think this is the better question. Traveling, could you travel just with an iPad?
If we did not have a show to record, probably.
Case in point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because
case in point.
The audio subsystem for iOS/iPad OS is still pretty primitive.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, you see it, you play some Apple Music and then go to YouTube. Mm-hmm. You don't get them both to play like you would on a Mac or a PC. Correct. Right? It's going to say, well, you must really just want to watch the YouTube, so I'm going to kill the other one. And, it is what it is.
I will say that is not the case with AirPlay. If you're AirPlaying from your iPad,
right.
You can go, but you're right on the local device.
Yeah.
Correct.
If you kick that off AirPlay to some HomePods or something else, then it respects that and we'll play it there. But otherwise, so I think a couple of things have happened. The period where Apple introduced the split screen setup, which I think was iOS, it was just iOS then, I think, 9, where they did side-by-side apps and stuff like that. People, multitasking is coming. And then they put the keyboard folio out, and then the Apple Pencil. And if you overlay at that point in time how the Mac was trending, which was not good because the iMacs were stale. The Mac Mini hadn't been updated for several years. The laptops had the crappy keyboards. Apple didn't really seem committed to it at the time. Now, in retrospect, we know that's not necessarily, or isn't the case. But then I think some people were kind of like, well, I don't know. Apple doesn't seem really invested in the Mac's future anymore. This iPad thing's kind of nifty and interesting. Could be the future thing. Fast forward to Apple Silicon era for the Mac, and we've said before here that the Mac is back. This is like a new golden age of Mac hardware. The MacBook Air is amazing. The MacBook Pros are amazing. The Studio, the Minis. I think the Mac Pro is the one that probably gets dinged the most, just because it's so much more expensive than the Studio just to get yourself some slots. But for the people that need it, they need it. I mean, that's a very specific audience that needs that. And so I think when you kind of look at it and you'll say, well, gosh, they sure are slowly moving the iPad forward. And sometimes it feels kind of begrudgingly that they do it. Like, and then like with Stage Manager came out, you addressed that a minute ago where it wasn't great. And it was very
less
rigid.
Than great.
Yeah, it really was. There were parts of it that I liked, and you could see the potential was there, but it was so finicky with window layout and just how little options you had with that. But that seems to be rectified quite a bit with 17.
Yeah, I would say definitely. It's very nice in 17. It's not Mac OS, but it's definitely leaps and bounds beyond what it was in the last iteration.
Right.
And enough, by the way, that I might even try it on my Mac. That's.
Yeah. Have you hooked that up to your display, the iPad with the 17 beta for Stage Manager on a bigger display?
I have not.
Okay.
I need to do that.
All right.
I have not.
Well, we can come back to that when we get the release. I've wanted to put it on, but because I do the podcast editing, I didn't know what the Ferrite app was going to do with the beta. So I was like, I'll wait.
Fair.
But I do want to try that. But back to that, I mean, and I also think kind of the other part of that is how does the user define work? Like, what do they do? I have an attorney friend who, leads the firm. He's the head guy there. It's his company. He started it, works off the 12.9-inch iPad just fine.
And what's he doing with it?
He does mail. He does chatting. He does web stuff with their apps that they use for it. No, it's not his only device, but he said 80% of the time he's using it.
He can do that. Right. And I can concur with that. Is he doing motions? Is he doing pleadings? Is he doing, I don't know what kind of.
Right. And I think he's maybe a little more removed from that scene now, and he's got the other partners there, the attorneys and things. Right. Right.
Is he listening to this?
He might minions. Be. Yeah, I just talked to him the other day. And I say, you should check it out. But I don't know if he will or not. But if he does, hey.
Yeah, he should. Definitely should.
So I think that plays a big part into it. Like if you're a podcaster, which this isn't work for us. This is a hobby work. You make money. We don't do that.
What?
I think it's tough to record. Editing's fine. Like I do that. Right. Maybe you're working in construction and you need to do photos. You need to do the LiDAR sensor. You've got an app for that. You're out in the field. You need people to sign contracts. You could do that all day.
Very true.
And so I think it's hard to say one way or another definitively because people's definitions or requirements for work vary so much from field to field, person to person, even within the same field.
Yeah, that's accurate, to be sure. And so maybe this is the point to bring up. What Jason Snell does the most of is writing. And so maybe, considering the tools available, I mean, I know he does podcasts.
Yeah, he does a lot of podcasts too. Yeah.
And like I said, I think he does edit on his iPad. He does a lot of stuff. But I think he was doing a lot of workarounds to make that work for him rather than having it be easy. So that's the thing. But like I said, I don't write in Word. I don't write in Pages.
Right.
Normally, there are things that I have done in those applications and continue to do. I think Pages is a great page layout application, for boneheads like me, where I'm not going to be using, I don't even know what they are. PageMaker doesn't exist anymore. That'll tell you how long it's been. Quark Express. I could say that if Highland Pro wasn't in beta, I know we need to just get these guys on the line and talk about that. Then maybe it would be more likely that I would use my iPad because that is primarily what I'm doing. Do use it to edit photos. Pixelmator's got a couple of great apps for the iPad that you can use. But if I look at the stuff that I have on here, my big folder is entertainment. I use Fantastical on here. I use Notes on here. Mm-hmm. I could get rid of the iTunes store altogether. Settings app, Notes, on the Graphel occasionally, but not really on here. I don't know. It's not the stuff that I need to use for the things that I'm doing. And I think that's a very valid point. Some people, this is an everyday tool, but for some people, it's not. I'm not an everyday tool person. Love the screen though for screen sharing. It's a nice size for that, for being able to use as a duplicate or a dual screen. And it's great for, watching movies while I'm cooking dinner.
Part of it too is I don't think Apple has done a good enough job with the product lineup. I think it's still messy. So you've got the Pros, you've got the 11 and the 12.9 M2s. I think the 12.9 has the micro LED display, I think. I don't think the 11 does, but don't quote me on that. Have to go look. So even there's some discrepancies. And then you've got the iPad Air. Then you've got the iPad 10th generation, which for some reason still uses the first generation Apple Pencil.
Don't get that.
Which is baffling to me and a lot of other people. So I don't understand that. The 9th generation iPad is still around. It looks really old at this point because all the other ones have the new design language on it. It still uses the first gen Apple Pencil, but it is priced very well. And so I don't think the lineup's terrible, but I'm sure, there are people at Apple that do this that are way smarter than I am with this stuff. And if you look and they say, yeah, look at the balance. You see, that balances out nicely. We're selling just exactly what we thought. But from a consumer side of things, it's it still seems a little bit messy. We deploy the 9th gen at work and, nobody really has any problem with them. They take their notes, they do what they do, and they're fine. I think if you said, could you work all day on a small screen like that? I would say no. I couldn't do it. I know some people probably don't. They could, but I could not. And I think we've had some discussions where, I wouldn't mind even a 14 or 15 inch iPad Pro. right? To get the bigger screen, especially now if they get the kinks worked out with Stage Manager, and then you're like, oh, yeah, that could be quite good. It's still going to be light. I mean, it's not going to be as heavy as the 12.9 and the Magic Keyboard is.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the Magic Keyboard. I don't love it. It's heavy. I don't like the trackpad a whole lot. It's serviceable. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but
no palm detection, which we've talked about before,
right.
And that drives me a little bonkers.
Right. And I think the friction point is you come from a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro with the gigantic trackpads, and then you come to the Magic trackpad, and it's small. And I get it. I mean, they're working with some constraints there, so I'm not going to ding them too much on it. But it's just the thing. I tell you the original keyboard they put out, the Folio that flips around so you can lay it flat.
Great one.
It's very good. I use that one still on the one I have at work. I used it a lot this week. And you asked some of the things I do, for example. So this week at the office, I had some kind of big picture idea stuff I was working on, sketching out. And so I put the iPad on the desk, had the pencil, jumped into Bear, got a sketch note started, and went to town. And it's great for that.
And it's an adjunct still for me.
Right.
It's something that's an add-on, a great add-on, but couldn't do business personally with just that.
Yeah. And I mean, but I think the biggest thing is like, and Jason Snell alluded to it in the article, it's just progressing so slowly. It's like every other year, that every other year kind of major thing. So everyone was surprised. They pleasantly surprised and happy with it that they, made some adjustments to Stage Manager, because on the iPad side of things, you always worry like, okay, they put it out and then it doesn't do anything for 2 years, and then they update it, and then there's another 2 years, and then the next thing you know, it's 6 years gone, and you're like, holy smokes. So I think that's part of it. Like the Files app you mentioned there it's okay. It's gotten better. Finder isn't great. We talked about that a minute ago jokingly, but it's been around forever and it's still not great. So I don't think the Files app is going to get great at any point. You mentioned maybe dropping things on the desktop, because I know a lot of people do that, but it's just, and again, this goes back to the habits that you and I have as longtime Mac users.
Right. Or longtime computer users.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. If you come from Windows, same concepts, right?
Right. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
What I think I'm asking for when I ask for that option is the ability, and this used to be in the Mac OS. Remember, you had the I can't remember what it was called, but you had it so you could set it up for your kids, and it was a single click of a button, and that open stuff.
Yeah, the Simple Finder.
That's what it was, Simple Finder, right? The ability to say, you know what, I'd like to turn off the Simple iPad.
They're like, oh, you could do that with a MacBook Air.
Yeah, you can do it with a MacBook Air. But that's kind of what the concept is, right? I mean, it's I'd like to have, for a more computer-like experience, I'd like to have more computer.
So what you're saying is Samsung's done it right with DeX, which is where you plug it in.
I don't even know what that is.
So that's their kind of, I think it's on the phones. And so you take your phone, you plug it into a monitor, and you get more of a desktop-y kind of environment to work in. I've never used it.
Desktop-y like. That sounds great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what you're asking for. So, I don't know how well they've implemented it because I've never used it. But
yeah, I don't know either.
But that's something. And I think other people have said that, and it's like, oh, it'd be great if I could take my iPad, and then when I put it in, hook it up to an external display, it turns into a Mac-like device.
Yeah.
And I don't see Apple doing that. But I tell you, though, when it comes...
It's the new goggles, pal.
Oh, geez. Could be. When it comes to end of the day, winding down the day, the iPad is almost irreplaceable for me, which is propped up in bed. I'm rummaging through Reddit, or I'm reading a book, or I'm watching some YouTube, whatever it is. Because doing that with a MacBook ain't great because, you always have the keyboard in the way.
Correct.
So love the iPad. This isn't a bash the iPad session. Like, I'm a big fan.
No, I agree with that.
But there's still
it's a question of whether or not
points.
Yeah, exactly. It's a question of whether or not you could live with that alone. And I can't. Others can. I think you've pointed that out. But it's not a thing that I could do. I love the iPad too. I really do. I've got it sitting next to me right now, showing my mug to you. And actually, I'm looking at our show notes on it, and I've got a full screen, in Riverside, which I don't usually do. Usually, I have it side by side. So that's a nice setup. It lets me do that, but not a standalone thing.
And some of the stuff Apple's put in for moving device to device, universal control. Great. Love it. Gets a little aggressive sometimes with wanting to grab the cursor. I'm like, oh, where to go? And it's like, and you scroll and you scroll and you scroll, and then it comes back. It's like, wow, I really took it way over to the other edge. But overall is really nice. I like that a lot. And it's fun. Like the interface is playful. We talked about that earlier on in the show with like the dynamic island and how, playful and whimsical, and that stuff is fun. I mean, it brings life to the devices, I think.
I just want to say, I just, of course, opened up Arc on the iPad, and I just got a message on my Mac saying, incompatible versions. You can't use both of them. Always something, Tom. It's always something. Actually, it says it's ready to update in this version.
And I'll tell you what
so
else
anyway, sorry, I got a little distracted.
Nope,
I apologize.
That's okay.
So I think we agree, although your mileage may vary. And we'd be interested in hearing that. So if you do use an iPad for everyday work, send us a response. Let us know. Talk to us about it. Yeah. We'd like to hear from you. We might even bring you on and have a conversation about that.
That's
so
good. Less work
want to be a guest on the show? Send us a, what's that?
Yes, less work for us when we have guests.
Right. Always better when we have guests.
Different perspectives.
Guests make us better.
Way better.
Guests are usually better than us. I think that's the more truthful thing.
Yeah.
So when you if you have the option or the opportunity to send us an email at feedback@basicafshow.com, let us know if you're using the iPod, good God, iPad day-to-day. Dude, I'm useless as two sticks.
It's getting late. Almost time for us to go to bed.
It's bedtime for old people, Tom.
Yeah.
I already had my dinner at 4:30 at the senior citizen discount.
Well, that's how you can afford those watch bands. So as we mentioned when the show kicked off, the event's coming up on the 12th. So we will do a recap and thoughts and all that stuff on the next episode of this fine podcast.
Yes.
So we'll have all of the news and whatnot. And depending on dates, the operating systems may be out by then too. Depends how Apple does that schedule.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think we would see that. And we're looking at the 12th is the date, and actually that would be time for us to record immediately following that. So
we should do a live show.
Oh, you think?
We can throw it on Zoom or something.
Oh, we could try that.
Tell your 3 friends, I'll tell my 2, and then maybe we'll have one person show up.
We'll have a whole group of 6.
Right. So. It's a party.
Woo.
Yep. All right. I think that does it for this one.
I agree with you, Tom. Good, all right. Good work. Good stuff. A couple reminders. As we said before at the top of the show, feedback@basicafshow.com. You can get Tom at where on Twitter?
Twitter, Tom.
Whatever that thing's called.
F. Anderson. And on Threads, it's just Tom Anderson. And
get me at Reyes Point.
Yep.
All those things. Show music by Psychokinetics, also known as Celsius 7. We highly recommend that you check out both Celsius 7's and Psychokinetics music. Celsius 7 has a new album out. Artwork by Randall Martin Design. Again, guy kills it. If you have any artwork needs, we highly recommend that you go see Randall. He'd be happy to take care of you and give you something that looks like our little show picture, which I still think is one of the best ones on any of the podcast apps. Stands out better than any of the other ones I've seen.
I agree.
And it's not just because it's ours.
He made it look good, even despite that they kind of factored us into the 2 robot dudes.
Right.
So that should tell you something.
Yeah, right. He made us look good.
He did.
If he made us look good, he'll make you look great.
That's it.
He had a long ways to go to get to good for us.
Yeah, that is true. All right. Well, I think that will do it. So thank you yet again for being here with us, checking us out. Hope you have a great rest of your day, rest of your night, and we will talk to you next time.
See ya.
I don't want to know about your imperfections.